Hi, I'm Captain Mike. In this video, I'm going to show you how anybody can make a super simple ash glaze. And it doesn't require burning any trees, it doesn't require burning any lumber, or burning anything except charcoal briquettes. So let me show you how we're going to do this. Well, here's what 8 pounds of briquette charcoal looks like after it has burnt for, I've had this here for over 24 hours. The reason is because I started it one evening just before dark, and the next day, sometimes, I don't know, around lunch, I thought I'd check it, and it was still hot. So one thing you want to do is make sure you check the temperature all the way to the bottom of this stuff before you start to sift it. Make sure it's not hot, has no hot coals in it. But this is what we're going to work with, is the charcoal that has been completely burned. Now I sifted all of that ash out that I showed you in the little container. And by the way, what did I do with it? Here it is. My barbecue grill, that wasn't a barbecue grill. What I used was all I had, which was a smoker. So I had to poke little holes in the bottom of this pan to get enough air up to burn them properly. And there's consequences related to that, and I'll show you. So if you have a regular barbecue grill, you're probably going to get a little different results as far as the different grades of ash. Now I sifted what I'm fixing to show you in these sifters, and they are from started off with 50 mesh all the way down to 20 mesh. 20 mesh is pretty fine. It's fine like flour. You might get away using a regular sifter, a sifter like you use for flour. You know, one of them little roundy things. But that's what I used. And here are the results. Now, because I didn't have a proper barbecue pit, I had a lot left over. When I run everything through the 50 mesh, this is what I had left over, okay? And there's a lot of barbecue briquettes in here that did not get burnt. In fact, there's about, let's see, I think 12.6 ounces. And we'll do the math in a minute and figure out where everything went. And the next one was a 20 mesh, and it's kind of like that. You can see it. And I don't use that. You might have a use for it. You might even could grind it up a little bit with a rolling pin, make it finer, and run it back through your sieves. The next one was a 30 mesh, and this was what was caught in the 30 mesh. Okay, so yeah, that's what was caught in the 30 mesh right there. And it's marginal as to whether I'd want to use it. It would give a lot of texture to your glaze, a lot of texture, more than I personally want. Put it in a bag, save it, who knows. What was left was this. And this went through a 30 mesh, so this is probably 10 mesh or so. It is just like flour. It's real fine, and you can feel very little particulate in it. The particulate is going to give your glaze a little character, in my opinion. And you could sift this even finer. I have finer mesh sifters, but we're going to go with that. And I think it's about a 10 mesh. I'll double check on something finer and see exactly what it is. So I did all the math because there was like 17.4 ounces in the final one. The 20 mesh was like 4 ounces, and this was like 3.6, and as I said, this was 12.6. The math comes out to 37.6 ounces, and if you divide that by 16, That's only roughly 3.5 or 2.5 pounds. Now, this sack holds 8 pounds. Okay, and we ended up with all of these that I just showed you at 2.35 pounds. So 5.5 pounds went somewhere, and I'm assuming that that was whatever volatile material they put in these briquettes to make them burn. Okay, moisture, whatever. The majority of it went somewhere. But you're going to end up with enough charcoal ash to do this experiment. So let me reset this table, and I'll show you how we're going to make the ash glaze. Okay, here's the way this is going to do. I'm going to run 2 types of ash glaze at the same time. This container has 8.5 ounces of ball clay in it. This one has 8.5 ounces of red art clay, powdered, both are powdered. And this is 8.5 ounces of briquette, barbecue briquette ash, as is this. And you can see that the clay weighs a lot more than the ash does. But we're going to run this experiment at 50-50, 50% ash, 50% clay. I sort of know what this is going to give me because I tried this video earlier. It was very long, and you get a nice cream color with very little particulate in it, and but it worked out great. It's just matte. So I know this is going to be matte. This is mainly to see if I duplicate it, I get the same thing. And what happens if you use red art clay instead of ball clay, which is predominantly white. Now I'm going to do 2 bowls. These are made with mid-fire clay, and I'm going to do one of these bowls will be in red art and one of them will be in the ball clay mix. And I'm going to do the same with this right here. This is some of my river clay, and I will do one in each of the mixtures, and we'll just compare the colors. Now, just for comparison, this was an earlier glaze that I made. This glaze was just a standard glaze that I made from ash. I have a video on that. I know you all think that this may be a duplication of that video, but it's not. This was made with tree ash. I burnt the trees and collected the ash. This one was from briquettes. You can see the difference. Now, when I do this, we're going to see if there's any particulate in it, which is what gives this the nice character. I can add back some of the finer, or actually the coarser stuff, ash to this and get particulate, I know. But we're going to see where we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to have no other additives in this video. Now, I will do a follow-up video on, if this stuff does not gloss, which I'm pretty sure it won't, I'm going to do a follow-up video on can we make the ash glaze gloss and can we add some chemical color to it. But that's another video. So what we're going to do is very carefully to start with is pour this ash in here because it makes some dust. But you want a mask if you're going to fool with this stuff. I simply dump that in there, and it doesn't matter which one that you're going to dump next. I'm going to dump the ball clay. Now, I have not measured the water because it's not important. We're going to add water, and we're going to let these sit and hydrate. And it's going to change the consistency, or viscosity, whatever you want to call it, of the glaze, and we'll have to probably add a little more water, maybe. So this is something you will have to do on your own. Start with enough to mix it. That's probably a cup or two. Get your whisk and start. And again, it is making dust. So a mask would be highly recommended for this. Way too thick, but now as usual with any kind of powdered stuff, sometimes just a little bit more liquid makes it go very, very thin. That would still not be quite as thin as I want it. I am going to make these glazes thinner than I think I need them, because I have been having some issues lately with some glazes wanting to creep, and I'm talking commercial glazes, and some of this ash glaze, as I play with it, wanting to creep a little bit and maybe pinhole, which I know there are other reasons for that. But we're going to give it a chance to soak in and grab a hold of the clay bodies on our pieces. So that's not quite where I want it, because I know it's going to thicken up a little. But this one here is going to be about right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let both of these sit after I have stirred them up very good, and let them hydrate, because the ash and the clay both will absorb water and it will become thicker. So you want to do that regardless of whether you're making ash glaze or whether you're making a commercial glaze. You want to go ahead and make sure they hydrate. The instructions tell you that. So here's the red art. And we'll dump some water in there. Rinse this off. Ooh, that's got a lot of dust in it. A lot of dust in it. Be real careful, folks. Now on this red art, I've got a white shirt on. I hope I don't slop any of it on it, because the red art may stain your clothes. The clay and all will come out, but the red art may stain your clothes, so be careful. That's one of the reasons I'm using these tall glass containers, because they're easier to work in and you have some visibility. You can see what you've got here. And so we'll stir up a little bit. Then I'll come back and periodically and stir it up again. So that's about all we can do with these until they have hydrated. I'll let them hydrate, and I'll come back and I will both of these will be dipped, and we'll let them dry thoroughly, and we'll see what we have. Okay, I think I have let these glazes hydrate enough. It's been a couple of hours, and we're going to go ahead and see how well they coat the ceramics. And then tomorrow morning, after they're good and dry, I can put them in the kiln and we can conclude this test. I had to add a little water to this one and none to the red art. And the word for today is thixotropic. Thixotropic. And what that means in ceramic terms is something that appears to be kind of thick, you stir it up, and it turns very liquid. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I love that word, thixotropic. Anyhow, what we have here is we have our red art, our we have our ball clay and ash, and I may even add a little bit of water to that even as we speak. And this is the red art, and it's drippier. So let's just add just a tad, okay? Just a tad. Because I kind of want them to be sort of alike. And it may be too thin, folks. I don't know. This is an experiment. When you get this far along, you're going to have to be calling the shots yourself. Glazes are an odd thing. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to dip these. I'll dip them in the red art, and I'll dip them in the regular ball clay. These two right here, I am going to brush them, and I'll do that off camera so that we can see if brushing is any different than dipping, okay? I have had some difficulties with that. So here, let's get this done right quick. Probably easier to do these with my hands than it would be with this little thing I made here. It does appear to be going on kind of thin, and that's what I want. That's what I want. I can experiment later with thicker coating if I want to. But they appear to be drying like normal glazes do. Okay, that's it. And while those are drying, I will go ahead and put some, I'll brush these on, and then when I come back, all this stuff will be fired and we'll talk about the results. I got all this stuff out of the kiln, so let's wrap up this experiment. We've tested red clay and white clay, both with ash glaze made from red clay and white clay, ball clay. And here's what we have. First, let's go with my previous experiment, one I had done earlier with some briquettes, and this is what we got. And it is very, very similar to this. This is the white clay, and there's no shine. It's matte. It has a little texture to it. One's a little darker than the other, but there were different makes of briquettes, but they're similar enough. There's not much particulate as far as color goes, but that's the white one, white ball clay, using the glaze made with just regular ball clay. And there is the red piece. When I say red piece, it was made with red river clay. It does have a little bit more particulate for some reason. It shows up better. Don't know why, but there are the differences. If you put the same glaze here over white clay, bisque, and red bisque, the red art clay that I added to this ash produced these two right here. And as you can see, this one is redder, just already redder than this one. So it did make a color change. Now, there's some issues with dripping and first one thing. That's my fault. Further experimentation would yield some better results, I'm sure, but just this was probably a little thin. But nevertheless, the colors are what I was after. This one is the Red River clay, and you can see it turned out almost an olive color. And not too bad. It actually has a little, both of these have a little semi-glaze to them. They not as matte as that, either in feel, texture, or in appearance. So that's what we got. Why it done that in the middle, I don't know. It was perfectly dry. We won't discuss that. All we're after is color, texture, and did it shine a little bit. And that one actually does. So using the red art, for whatever reason, gives a deeper color, and it adds a little bit of shine. Using ball clay gives it a lot more texture, feeling wise, and a lighter color. Now these right here are some that were brushed, and as you can see, the insides are much nicer on these. And I only used the white ball clay glaze, but I did reuse it on a white bisque and a red bisque piece, and you can see there not a lot of difference. Okay, not a lot of difference, but sometimes brushing does reveal a better difference. So that's our experiment on these. This was unexpected. I didn't expect to get any shine whatsoever. Definitely will warrant more experimentation. And I know my bowls are a little warped. These are slip cast bowls. This one is really thin. they're just experiment bowls. That's all I make these things for. So the heat affected them a little bit, okay? This was some of the glaze, as I showed you earlier, that was ash glaze from wood firing. The particulate has a lot more color to it than the briquettes. But this is definitely a doable deal. So that's what I got with this very basic experiment. Now, my next video will be on, can I put a lot of shine on this? Can I make these shine? Especially this glaze right here. Can I make it shine by adding, let's say, silica? And can I color it, especially on the white bisque, using chemicals that you would and minerals that you would normally color glaze with? That is my next video. So thank you for watching this one. I hope that it's different enough from my original ash glaze video that it was worth watching. Again, the only reason that I did this is that anybody can make these glazes if they can get their hands on barbecue briquettes and they can fire them wherever they live. Then they can make this glaze. You don't have to cut any trees down. You don't have to burn any wooden pallets. You don't have to do anything like that. You can make them out of barbecue briquettes. So if you're interested, give it a try. If you want more information from me, give it a try. And that's it. I'm Captain Mike. It's my video, and I'm out of here.